unless you're new here, you know that we blew the slow quest up. And if you are new here, you got a few videos to watch, so go back and watch those first.
Oh, it's smoking. Oh, it's smoking bad. It blew up.
In the last video, I said that I showed you all of the damage, but there's actually more damage that we found as we took it apart and cleaned the whole motor up. And I'll show you that in a second, but everything is all cleaned up, ready to go back together. That took us at least a few days to get this clean and looking pretty, but unfortunately, there is a little bit more damage. So as we were cleaning the crankshaft, after we took the crank out, unfortunately, we saw a couple of scores in the crank. You can see if you look close. So you can see it right here. Luckily, this isn't coming out of the crank. It's a score in. And we're like, oh, okay, that's a little bit suspicious. We should look at this better, considering we also found this in the number 5 rod bearing. We thought we should look a little bit closer, and here's what I found. So we took the main bearings out in the last video, and we thought they looked fine, but we looked a little bit closer and found something I've never seen before. If you look close, right here, you can see chunks in the middle of the main bearing. This exists on 2, 3, and 4 on the crankshaft. And these little chunks here, I believe they call this fretting, when parts of the bearing starts to chunk out, and it actually, you can see on all of the bearings, it came out, put a little bit of wear on the crankshaft, and all these bearings are pretty much junked. And we know why this happened. These bearings are what you call a P bearing because it's the part number. This is a standard OEM like replacement upgrade bearing you put in these motors. These aren't that strong. They aren't really rated for race use. But it was during the, how can I say it on YouTube? The panoramic days is when we built this motor. This is all you could get. But to fix this problem, this is what they call the H bearing. It's a hardened material that shouldn't break. And these are rated for high horsepower applications. If you put them side by side, you can see this one's got a coating on it, but this bearing will withstand significantly more abuse than this one will. To fix that issue, we're going to upgrade these bearings. We're going to measure them, make sure they're right, and I'll show you that when we get there. But in this video, we're going to go through and I'm going to show you every upgrade we do as we do it to the motor in a full buildup. Shouldn't take that long, and we're only changing a few things, but I'll show you what we're changing as we change them. What we're doing now is we actually went through and measured all the main journals and wrote down the measurements for the size of the main journal, and we're now comparing it to the new bearing using a caliper to see if it will actually work or not. And it looks like these are, what, about 1,000s too much clearance?
What you want for street and driving, this is going to come in around 5. You'd like to be down around 3, 3.5. Crank's got 1,000s in it. This is not so bad there, but still it's 4.8 to 5. So you like to knock that down at least 1,000.5.
Yeah, so got to figure out what we can do to make the bearings fit better. So we were able to fix the main bearing clearance problem, but I'm going to show you this with an asterisk next to it of we don't usually do this, nor do I recommend doing this. So you can see this was our measurement before. You have to add 1,000th because we were rounding off our measurements. So we were at 43 thou clearance. Now we're down to 29 clearance on the number 2 here. I'm going to show you how we accomplish this. So underneath the bearing on the cap, and again, this is not something we normally do. However, we're doing small block Mopar stuff. Nobody makes parts for this. So it was either do this to clear up our 1 thou, because they don't make a 1,000th under main bearing for a small block Mopar. Nobody, by the way. I looked everywhere. Nobody does, or you can't get them for a few months, and that's just not an option for us. Or we grind the main journal down 10,000ths and shorten the lifespan of my crankshaft that is worth more than my daily drivers. So this is what we did instead. If you take this bearing and pop it out, you'll see underneath it, we have a 2000s brass shim put underneath the bearing on the cap side. And this effectively, on average, changed our measurements by, if you look at them, about 1.5 thou and got us into the range that we want to be with the clearances on the main bearings. Again, asterisk. We don't do this normally, but I don't want to grind 10,000s off of my crankshaft and shorten the lifespan of it by who knows how many years. I think that's ridiculous. If you were doing like a Chevy motor, they make 1 thou tighter bearings that you can get. They don't for this. Doesn't exist. So this is currently our solution to this, and we're going to run it like this, and we're going to see how it goes. I'm personally not worried, but again, I need to put the asterisk in there. Not a recommended procedure to do this typically. So it's reading at 26, and it was reading at 42 before, but with the shims in it, tightened it up that much. And then you got to add 1,000th because we rounded on the math with the crankshaft, so that ends up being 36, which is still even gently loose, but 2.5 to 3.5 is where you want to be, so it puts us right in range. Yeah, it spins. So you actually want to make sure the crank can wiggle back and forth and is not bound up against the thrust bearing. So he's actually physically grabbing it and wiggling it. And we have a caliper on the end to measure how much it wiggles. And you can see it's right about, what, 3,000ths?
Yep.
So give or take 3 thou, which is good. That's good end play. But make sure you check this so your crank isn't bound up when you go to turn the motor over. So now it's time for pistons and rods to be put in. This is the number 5. We put the new rod bearings in. Yes, we measured them up. And all the measurements were the exact same as they were before. So the rod bearing's good. We did measure it. So don't put that in the comments. Top of that, I wanted to take a second and show you something else that we changed. So these rings, we had them gapped before, at the top ring at least, to 18 thousandths, right? It was 18. And if you do the math online, it's supposed to be 22. So we did take all of the top rings off every piston and open them up. I didn't get that on video, but we did open the top ring up just a little bit. So it's now at, when it was 18 and now they're at 24 on every piston. So the top ring was opened up just a little bit. We're working on getting all of them put in right now.
Sweet.
Yeah. Tap it in. And there it is. So what we're doing right now is we are checking the intake center line of the cam to make sure it's not off at all. You can see all 8 pistons and rods in, cam gear on, timing chain and gear set on, everything's on it now. So when here's something funny, you know that I was looking into the parts in this. The lowest rated part we have in this motor is the rods. They're rated for 1100 horsepower. So you know that this motor is capable of 1100 horsepower.
You're talking to me?
Yeah. This motor's 1100 horsepower capable because the rods are the only part that's the lowest rated part in this motor is 1100 horsepower.
Yeah, my grandfather was Ulysses S. Grant too.
So you're saying you don't want to make 1100 horsepower?
If you thought you were having a good time, stressing the head gaskets out, you wait until you try to do that. You'll be stressing yourself out a lot worse than that.
If anybody asks, this is our 1100 horsepower small block Mopar.
Yeah, there you go.
What we're doing is see this gauge right here? I want you to center line the cam at 50 so we get the gauge to 50 thousandths with the gauge we have on the actual, intake side lifter to get the intake center line. And then we are checking, pretty much taking the 2 numbers that you see here, the actual degree, and then divide by 2. That gives you your intake center line. And just checking to make sure it's good. This probably isn't necessary because the motor's been together, but we're doing all the extra work to make sure we don't screw it up twice. So you add those 2 numbers up, and then you take them divided by 2 to get the center line number. We're at 106.375, dead on 106 what the cam card calls for. So it's pretty much perfect. We have an indicator on this fake little lifter we have here. So he pushes it until it reads just as close to 50 as you can kind of get as a human. Close enough to 50. So now we're going to read the number off of our little pin here, which we already zeroed out, which is
76.5.
76.5. Now he's going to spin it until this moves again, until this also reads 50 again. So now we're close to 50 again, and that reads
136.
So you add those 2 numbers up. Comes out to 212, divide by 2, 106.25. Spot on exactly where the center line's supposed to be on the cam. So at least the intake center line. This is probably unnecessary since the motor's been together, but just check it anyway while you're doing it. Better than blowing stuff up. Something funny I want to show you about small block Mopars. This is actually just a factory style oil pump. And look at this. This is a 408 stroker setup, obviously. Look. See the rods? Clear. Look at this. Look how much the crank clears by. Just barely. It just sneaks in. You can just use a regular oil pump when you make a 408 stroker out of the 360s, and it clears. Not by a lot, but it clears. All right, we have got the timing cover on and the oil pan on. Everything's all glued and siliconed, cleaned up. All the pistons are in, rods are in, crank is in, cam is in. Making progress. Now it's time for one of the biggest steps in the fix to why we blew it up. The thing that we blew up was the head gaskets, both of them in 3 different spots. So to fix that, we have the head gasket that should have gone into the first place. Remember when we built the motor, there was a global illness that limited our part availability. Well, now Cometic actually has them in stock. This is the Cometic MLS head gasket, 75 thousandths thick. We had a 40 thousandths thick before. The compression ratio was a 10-1. It should be right around 9.5 now. So we're kicking the compression ratio down a little bit and going to the Cometic MLS. This is pretty much what you should use in every single motor that you build. They just didn't have them at the time. We literally couldn't get one. Putting the right stuff in. And the advantage to this, not only is it thicker, so less compression, which means that less likely to blow things up. The multiple layers, you see this? This is why they call it the MLS. It's a multiple layer gasket. It gives you just a lot more room for forgiveness if you put a little bit too much boost, too much timing. This allows things to move and flex a little bit. Gives you a lot more room for error, which obviously we need because we made an error. This is a huge step up from what we had on there before. So if you look at where the head gaskets actually blew up, they blew up at the top of the cylinder right here because we have a dish piston in to get the compression down, but above the valve relief, there is no dish. There's only a dish down here. This is they call it a quench point, right? The point of quench, where there's the most compression that exists on the piston is right here, hence why it blew out the top, which we kind of got lucky because it made less of a mess when it blew out the top, but it's going to blow out this way. So what we're trying to do by getting a thicker head gasket, not necessarily kick the compression down, but make this quench point have a little bit more relief, and the multiple layer head gasket will give it a little bit more room to breathe, a little bit more room for air in it as well. So something we actually do with these MLS head gaskets that you don't need to do on any motor, probably but the small block Mopar, they will actually leak out of these spacers a little bit of water, not a lot, but it'll kind of seep. We actually spread them apart like this, and before we put them on, we spray some copper spray gasket on it, just some glue, some normal head gasket glue on it to get this to seal. Otherwise, the water passages will actually just gently seep out on this. Probably something you don't have to do on anything but a small block Mopar. This is just what Mopar guys have to deal with. So we got lifters, push rods, rocker arms, all back on and ready to go. And you see we have an oil pressure gauge here. So we do something a little bit different that I haven't seen somebody else do, so I'm going to show you that. So what we got here is what you call a premium doohickey. It is a drill with a rod with an end on it that will actually go into the oil pump on the motor. So then that way, while we're still on the engine stand, we can stick it all the way into there and actually turn the oil pump and make sure not only that we have the right oil pressure, but that all of the rockers and every other part of the motor gets the oil that it's supposed to. So I was gonna jam it in there and actually spin the oil pump. That's about 70 pounds. You see oil come out of the lifters. We're making a mess, but here, I'll show you. Spin it. And we're oiling. There you go. So you can see, just checking to make sure every rocker is getting oil. Every lifter was getting oil too. So that side's good. And you can see all 8 on the other side are also oiling. So we do this just to verify that we have oil pressure. All the lifters get oil, all the rockers get oil, everything gets oil. And it may seem a little bit unnecessary, but believe it or not, we actually had a small block Chevy he was working on, like a week or two ago, that had a lifter clogged, which was stopping the oil from getting all the way to a rocker. So there'd be one dry rocker on it. If you just put it on the dyno, it would have blown up immediately. So it seems unnecessary, but sometimes it is. And there she is, totally done, ready to go. Today is Sunday. We blew it up, not Thursday, but the week before. So it's been what? No, I'm sorry, 2 weeks before. So technically that makes it, 17 days later. And we're back. That's it, ready to go. Got this thing turned around really fast, changed a ton of stuff, but we're not done yet. Although the motor is ready, if you watch the video where we ran at the track, I pulled second and third gear and the RPM didn't move at all, which means our converter is junk. So we got from ATI a new converter that should be better. I want to clarify, the Hughes converter wasn't junk. It just simply can't handle the power we're trying to put down anymore. So we had to step up to something a little bit beefier. And this ATI converter should give us all the grip that we need. So the gear changes actually change gears when we're at the track, which is exciting. The next step is going to be getting this converter in, getting the old one out, which I got to go climb in the car to do. And then it's time to put it back in, plug everything in, and fire it up. Almost time to go back to the track. Also, I know there was a lot done to the motor I didn't show you. We didn't change anything. Put the same parts back on, glued everything on the same. Nothing was changed up until the converter. So the converter is the only thing we're changing with the car. I'm physically inside the vehicle right now. I'm in the engine bay. When you, swap a small block into an 87 Conquest, getting the converter out is kind of an interesting debacle. I've been lifting weights for a long time. It makes it harder to work on cars because you don't fit. There you go. Converter's out from inside. Always neat to see the transmission. I haven't had this thing out since we finished the car years ago. There we go. Converter in.
You wash the back, I'll wash the front.
And just like that, the motor is back in the car, which is not a fun process because obviously everything barely fits in here, but it's in. Well, I think today was supposed to be the day we run it, but that is supposed to be connected there. Oh, goodness, man. We got everything in. The headers are on. Alternator is on. Everything is hooked back up. Having some issues with the water pump priming, but hopefully that'll fix itself when the car runs. Gonna check the timing, and I think it's finally time to run the car again. All of our gauges are working on the dash again. Looks like all of our gauges are working on the sniper. All of our sensors are hooked back up. Well, turn the key and see if it runs. It's got O2, all pressure. Everything looks good. It's alive, it runs again. Took us a few weeks, but we're alive. Well, it runs again. We're gonna try to run it again here in a second. Have an issue where the water pump isn't priming. Don't know why, it happens on these Mopar motors sometimes, so gonna try to get that issue sorted and then probably run it again here in a few minutes. Oh, we spent at least 8 hours trying to figure out why the water pump wouldn't prime, and it was pretty simple. Our water pump motor went bad, so now it's time to actually run the car and make sure everything's good. Yeah, baby. She's back. Finally, took us a few weeks, but she lives. That's healthy. I like that. Well, there you go. The Slow Quest is back alive and ready to go back to the track. The next time you see a video on this channel, it will be the Slow Quest trying to get its 10 without blowing the head gaskets this time. So if you have yet to subscribe, now's the time if you want to see the car go on the track. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen. If it's going to blow up again, if it's going to run a 10-second pass, if I'm going to pee myself and chicken foot it, or what do you think is going to happen? Let me know in the comments. It has been a few weeks of work to get this put back together, and there was a lot of weird complications like the water pump. I'm just glad it's finally done, and I'm ready to go put the pedal to the ground. So in the next video, we are taking the Slow Quest to the track and see if it runs its 10. Subscribe right now. Do it.